What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Cycle Fanatic Halftime Show, presented by Fareway Meat and Grocery, Ames, and Des Moines Eye Care. Matt Van Winkle, Jared Stansberry, and Chris Williams, the three musketeers here for you on a Tuesday afternoon, a rare Tuesday. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad, man.
It's fantastic. What's better than Big 12 basketball on a Tuesday afternoon?
That's right. Welcome to the Cade Cunningham Show, right, guys?
Yeah,
42 to 30 Cyclones trailing the Cowboys down in Stillwater. I think the score is a little bit even closer than it should have been. 12 points. It seemed like that was just a total domination by the Cowboys. Not really a whole lot to be excited about from Iowa State, but man, Cade Cunningham sure looks like he's going to be the first pick in the NBA draft, guys.
Go ahead, Jared. I know that you were blown away by Cunningham there.
Yeah, man. I think it's obviously like the offensive end for him so far. It's easy to be impressed, but the fact that he was left open so much is probably the thing that's most worth noting there. But I just thought it was impressive how hard he plays on both ends, and I think that that's something that, we've seen a lot of guys in this league that are really good offensively, whether it's Trae Young or whoever else, but he gets after it on both ends of the floor. I think that's really impressive. That's the thing that I think it really separates him from other players that we've seen here over the last several years.
Yeah, and I think, too, just to kind of jump into the Iowa State conversation, I admittedly didn't watch the two Kansas games that closely. I've been out of town. I did watch them. Jared, I think, if I recall, you wrote in a column, I believe on Saturday, something about taking one step forward and two steps back. I kind of feel like that today, watching this game. It seemed like the theme coming out of Saturday's game against Kansas. So, you get beat by like 40 Thursday, you come back and they competed, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. They played pretty good defense on Saturday. This is not good defense today. Like that, it hasn't carried over. Even despite the loss, we can objectively look at it and say they played pretty good defense against Kansas Saturday. This, it seems like a strong statement, but I thought today in the first half was one of the worst defensive efforts we've seen by Iowa State.
I think that's absolutely fair. And when you look back at that game against Kansas on Saturday, I think Kansas probably missed some shots that they, would make a lot of times. But still, I felt like, and I told Matt this at the time, I thought that they just were flying around differently than what we had seen them do, maybe in the couple weeks previously. But, in this game, it's right off the bat. You saw where they got the wide open transition dunk where Steve Prohm took the timeout before the under 16. And it's just completely lacking. And I don't know that it's like we talk about energy and effort and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's just like a desire thing. And I don't know if they're tired or like what the deal is, but when you just let a guy run right down the middle of the floor for a wide open transition dunk, like that's problematic, and I don't know. I think they had 5 dunks in like the first 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
That there comes a point where it's like, are you just going to just do something to keep them from just dunking on you all the time, and I think that's what's frustrating is it felt like they had that competitive desire, that fire that it took to really get after it on the defensive end on Saturday, and you're just not seeing that at all. Guys are just left wide open. How many times have Oklahoma State been able to get something easy in transition? That's where it's like you sit back and you just have to think like, man, like, do you guys even want to be playing right now? Because it doesn't look that way.
26 points in the paint for Oklahoma State in the first half. I haven't felt that way about this team really until that 20 minutes. There really hasn't been a half of basketball this year where I'm like, man, do they want to be out there? Like I just thought that they weren't very good. I think it is fair today where I think they want to win. Like, I'm not doubting that they're putting in the work but you do wonder, you're getting to a point where, there's not a lot to play for here, obviously, other than your own pride. That was a hiccup of a half from an effort standpoint, I thought. And I hate questioning effort. I don't like being that guy. because most people have no idea what it takes to for a Big 12 athlete to even make it onto the floor, and not to mention in a pandemic year. But that seems like a step back of a half to me.
And the thing that
they can turn that around.
The thing that I know, Jared, you talked a lot about is like, if you're not going to be good defensively, like be good at something else. You know what I mean? Like I mean, what are they? 4 of 13 from 3 today. Like you got to be better than that. I mean, if you're not going to play defense, you got to at least be 50% from your threes. I mean, you've got to do something well. And we just haven't seen that. I mean, it's been the disappointment of the season is that they just haven't been able to shine anywhere, and there's been no consistency. And we've seen a lot of these scoring droughts from them too. I mean, they weren't great in that first half, but again, if you're not going to get back on defense and give up all these transition buckets, like you have to do something better, right?
Well, I think that's what's staggering about this team, man. Like I would like to go back and chart just how often they've gone on these like 2-3 minute stretches where they just don't score. I mean, I can't remember a team that's been that way, where they just have these really, really long scoring droughts. And like, you saw that every once in a while, maybe from some of those earlier teams, but it was like they also had the ability to score 17 in like a 2-minute stretch, And so like this team just can't afford to dig any sort of a hole for itself because the hole just gets deeper and deeper. And I do think that Oklahoma State deserves some credit as well. Like I think that this is a good team. They're super athletic. Like that's the thing with getting it out in transition. I mean, they're just so much more athletic than Iowa State. It's not even funny. And I do think George Condit deserves some credit too, because he's been a guy that we've challenged a lot here over probably really the entire season, but I would say specifically the last month and a half. I feel like he has played really well in his minutes the last like week and a half. And today is more of the same. Like he's like one of the few guys I sit there and it's like, man, George Condit looks like he really wants to be out there today.
Mm-hmm. Trey Jackson for me too. That's a guy who time and time again when I watch this team, I listen. I don't think Trey is ever going to be like a all Big 12 type guy, but his motor, his character, what he brings from that standpoint, he does remind me of like a Nazmi Trulong when he was that age. Again, I'll leave it at that, but that's a guy who they just seem to me like a smarter, more well put together basketball team, specifically on the defensive end when Trey Jackson's on the floor. I mean, Jared has some physical limitations. He's not very big, but you follow the team closer than I have this year. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I just think the issue is that he can't create for himself.
Correct.
And he's so limited offensively where it's like you basically just have to put him in the corner. And that could also probably play a role in why they seem more connected, is because they're kind of just like four guys out there, I
mean, more defensively. I just think
I get what you're saying.
But I feel like too when you saw Oklahoma State maybe struggle a little bit in that half is when they were actually putting some perimeter on the 3-point line. You know what I mean? If they weren't letting Oklahoma State drive, get those easy looks in the paint. If you can start putting a little bit of pressure on them on the outside, which to your point, Chris, I think Trey Jackson does well at. He defends well on that line, but I don't know. We'll see if they can string it together. But I think if you can put together a few stops. I mean, again, you're only down 12. We've been saying this a lot this season. They're only down this much, but yeah.
This one feels good to me. I hope that they can keep it close. This game feels a little different to me than some. Yeah. We'll see.
Like the TCU game, they were able to put together some stops and go on a pretty good run.
That was the worst loss of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like
I agree.
To me, that was kind of when I was like, okay, like this thing's. I mean, if they can't pull that one out, like that one stung. Jared, real quick, and Matt too. You've watched this team closer than me. Jaden Walker, excuse me, the freshman point guard, really was coming on strong a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. He seems to be in a little bit of a funk now. Has he hit a wall? Jared, what are you seeing from him? I'm not down on him. You see this with freshmen and young players all the time, but he seems like he's really struggling out there.
I mean, I would think the biggest thing is that he shows up on the scouting report now,
Okay.
Which earlier in that stretch he probably really wasn't, and now all of a sudden you're in a position where people are keeping an eye on what your strengths are. I mean, and this is, you talk about Iowa State putting pressure on people defensively. I mean, he just doesn't handle the ball that well.
Yeah.
So it's like when you put a little pressure on him, all of a sudden his handle starts to get loose, and that's when you start to see him turn the ball over a little bit more. And I think if you flip it back to that other end, and I was going to say this when Matt was talking before, but what the issue that they have is that they, outside of Trey, they don't have anybody who can get out there and pressure the ball that way and not foul.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't afford to have Rasir Bolton in foul trouble. We've seen what happens when you get into those situations. And just guys get straight line drived too much. Like, that's why they're ending up in a lot of these positions that they are right here, where someone just drives right past you, you know? So it's like you have to make a decision of, am I going to sit back or am I going to try and go out and pressure and risk the fact that they're probably going to go right past us or we're going to foul them. So,
especially when you're playing teams like Oklahoma State that are so athletic that
Right.
they just beat you off the dribble and they just throw up a lob. You know what I mean? Like, that's where they're getting killed, especially in this game with the amount of dunks at Oklahoma State. But I think, again, to your point, Chris, I think Jaden Walker and Javen are probably your two most athletic players. And I think some of that athleticism, sometimes with them being so, well, especially with Javen being so young, I think they just turn it over too much. You know, they try to do a little too much.
Yeah,
I think is what you're seeing.
I felt like Johnson really, of all the guys, probably was impacted by that layoff. I don't, Jared, do you agree with that? Like, he seemed like
he was in a nice little groove
level
for a while.
Yeah, he seemed like he was kind of like getting close to breaking through, and then that layoff happened, and he really hasn't been the same guy since.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one guy of those ones that came back from the extended break that even once they came, he looks tired a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm guessing that he just has had a hard time getting his wind back, and that I thought that was the case. What was the first game that he came back and played in?
That was the Oklahoma game.
The Oklahoma game, yeah. And it was like in the first half, you could just see that he just looked gassed. He played pretty well in the second half of that game, but just it seems like he's having a tough time being able to find that again. And I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I think in this game, like, I think that they're just outmanned. This is the first time in a while that I sit here and I'm like, I think this team is just talent-wise way better than them, you know?
Yeah.
And even like Kansas has good players, but they don't have that guy who can just break you down off the dribble. And that's what everybody for Oklahoma State can do, is break you down off the dribble, and then you get into scramble situations. We know that they're never any good in scramble situations. So, like, this is kind of just a bad matchup when you have a guy, especially a guy as good as what Cade Cunningham is.
Yeah, he was definitely the highlight of that first half for Oklahoma State. Guys, this might be our longest halftime show we've done, but it's fun to kind of break it down with you two.
Yeah, I think it was good content, and hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Hopefully we were a distraction for you guys.
I think we had more people watching today than we did on like a weekend game. So obviously people are getting bored at work and watching the Cyclones on their phone or something. So, and watching us at halftime. So we appreciate you guys watching. Guys, any final thoughts? Anything Jared, you gonna have a wrap after this game?
No, I just appreciate everybody sticking with us, and trust me, our jobs are a lot more fun when the Cyclones are winning as well. But we're still, like we always say, we cover the Cyclones win or lose. So hopefully they can go out there and make this a game in the second half. I'm not going to hold my breath, but it's certainly possible. Go out and what do they got to have, Jared? 13 threes in the second half to win this?
At least, I would say. But no, Rob's got the road recap. Austin Hurst's going to come on and do the instant reaction with me, so we'll have that that after the game. And I will say too, for anybody that doesn't want basketball content, I just posted our radio show from last Thursday, and I thought that it was really, really good with Jeff Woody. We dove into the football schedule, so anybody who's looking for a distraction last hour of work can go to that too.
Yeah, and if the pod that Bloom and I had from yesterday too, it's really not it won't be dated. We do a lot of like the future of college athletics and that type of stuff. So there's more non-basketball stuff out there for you guys.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate everyone watching. Yep. Thanks to our sponsors.
You can come listen to my Cakes and Our Radio show too. I'm literally going to hang up with you guys and go on the air.
All right. Okay, sounds good, Chris. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Jared. Thanks to our sponsors, Fareway Meat and Grocery, Ames, and Des Moines.